Ramp.
Oh, he's on the road looking down to the arts. I only just that second sort of saw it. No, she hasn't been talking for days. Oh, okay. I understand. Yesterday she said something like that.
All right. Good afternoon, handful people. All right, let's start with praise to Manjushri. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, hold to his heart a scriptural text symbolic of his sin all things as they are, whose understanding shone forth as the sun unclouded by defilements or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with a patient love of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You, as drunken thunder proclamation, Dhamma rises from the stupor of our delusions and frees us from the iron chains of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews out sufferings wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of all ignorance. I entreat you, Manjushri, princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, who has completed the 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning, O Manjushri, a loving one with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness and close my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain insight into the Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. For the accumulations I collect will listen to the teachings, may attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations I collect by listening to the teachings, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. All right. We started to speak of joyous effort yesterday. I think that we've stopped in looking at the first step of joyous effort according to Vasubandhu, which is armoring joyous effort, armor like joyous effort. So I wanted to today to complete the list of the different types of joyous effort to see how they relate to the other classification of Lama Tsongkhapa's classification. Then to go over laziness, which I think that what we have, I think by and large, at least I do. But before we begin with that, I thought of also revisiting one of the things that we've discussed yesterday. So we spoke of the order of the perfection, right? We said that joyous effort was taught as the fourth perfection. All the other perfections need joyous effort in order to be perfected, you could say, in order to be practiced, in order to be perfected. So joyous effort is found within all of them. And yet, from the point of view of the order of the perfections, it is said that they're increasingly more and more difficult to practice, so more and more complicated. And also, one depends upon the other, which means joyous effort depends on patience, which in turn depends on ethics, which in turn depends upon generosity. So I wanted to read from Khenpo Kunpan's presentation will present it quite nicely. So it says in page 235 in this book, it says, the paramita, the perfection that follows, depends upon the one preceding it. So it refers to the first verse in chapter 7. Just let's read through that. With patience, I should undertake joyous effort. Enlightenment will dwell in those who strive. So it says, the paramita that follows in dependence on the one preceding it. Accordingly, the 6 paramitas or the 6 perfections are arranged in such a way that each paramita stands in a relation of cause and effect with the one following it, which means that patience is a cause for joyous effort. Joyous effort is a result of patience. So, when people are generous, it begins with the first perfection. When people are generous, they are not attached to possessions, and this makes possible the practice of discipline, ethical discipline, which implies that if we have an excessive degree of attachment, it would be hard to guard pure ethical discipline. When discipline is acquired, so too is the ability to cultivate patience. Which means that, again, if you do not guard ethical discipline well, you can say bye-bye to patience. And once patience has been achieved with regard to great and difficult practices, it is possible to apply enthusiastic diligence, which means that, as we said yesterday, it is to rejoice in virtue. So if you have patience with things that are complicated, with difficult practices, so there could be difficult on many different levels. It could be difficult in terms of having to get by on less, having to practice for a long time until you start experiencing or seeing some results. It could be also that the conditions, just the physical conditions around you are meager. It could be that the people that you're working with are difficult. It could be that your own afflictions make it difficult. So there are many difficulties that we face, and for all of them, we need patience that willingly accepts suffering, patience that pays no heed to harm that is inflicted upon us, and also definitely we need patience that is absolutely certain about the Dharma. So if you have patience, if you have the stuff of patience, Khenpo Kunpan says, once patience has been achieved with regard to great and difficult practices, it is possible to apply enthusiastic diligence. So why is this last paramita so needed, joyous effort? Because it is through such diligence that one obtains the fruit of great enlightenment, as if it lay within one's fingers reach. So here, Khenpo Kunpan provides one reason for the necessity of joyous effort. He says that if you want to become enlightened, you need joyous effort. You need to be diligent about virtue. So that's like speaking about the end result. All right, so if you want to get the end result, you definitely need enthusiastic diligence or joyous effort to rejoice in virtue. But you can say that also to continue with the practice of the path, you also need stores of joyous effort. So to enter the path, even before you enter the path, just to enter it, you need to develop compassion, uncontrived compassion for all sentient beings. For that, you need a lot of joyous effort to rejoice in the virtue of compassion, and also to deal a lot with cases in which your patience will be tested. You need to develop uncontrived compassion with respect to all living beings without exception. So think about people that you detest. Detest is quite a strong word, right? But we do sometimes have a sense of disdain to others, or we do find them annoying or overbearing or completely disagreeable and so forth. If we exclude even one of them, there's no way that we could generate uncontrived great compassion. So joyous effort is needed to do that. Joyous effort is needed to develop bodhicitta, uncontrived bodhicitta. So that's before entering the path. Then as you enter the path, you need to accumulate the collections of the 3 great countless eons, and to still be motivated to do it for such a great time in which you experience a lot of difficulties. So definitely joyous effort is absolutely needed, which means that you need to through and through be constantly devoted to virtue. Then you need to accumulate the two collections to bring them to completion. And along the way, you also need to attain a union of karma body and special insight. How hard it is. A union of karma body and special insight that focuses on emptiness. Very difficult. To develop a perceptual realization of emptiness. For all of this, you need joyous effort. So that's, I think, kind of also highlights why it is difficult to generate joyous effort, which is delighting in virtue, because on the surface, it seems that it's quite easy. It might seem that it would be quite easy to appreciate virtue, because on a superficial level, we do acknowledge that if we cultivate virtue, it will make us happy. Virtue will give us happiness and well-being. But then I think that on a day-to-day basis, when we try to implement the teachings into different areas of our life, in a meditation practice at home, or just when we deal with day-to-day situations, when we try to maintain a positive and virtuous state of mind, then we find sometimes that we are quite lacking, right? So it's hard to be constantly enthused about virtue. It's hard. So that overreaching or completely encompassing sense of joyous effort is harder than harder than patience. So that's the order of the perfections. Now, we read yesterday through the first verse. Then the second verse, it says, what is enthusiasm? It is enthusiasm about virtue. There are different ways of translating joyous effort into English. Joyous effort in Tibetan is tsundru. The first syllable in that word is tsun, which means effort or exertion.
What's your name?
Yeah, it's also my name. I guess that my full Tibetan name is Karma. Karma is the name of the lineage, Karma Kagyu. Tsundru is joyous effort, and Taya is limitless. So, it's quite an oxymoron in relation to myself, because I'm a very limited joyous effort, or have very limited. Yeah, this is what I aspire to. Yeah. Anyway, so Tsundru in Tibetan, Tsundru is in Tibetan. Tsun means effort or exertion. And the word tsundru is also used in a colloquial sense, just to be diligent, to be hardworking in pursuing a particular goal. But here, from a religious perspective, from a Dharma perspective, it's not just to make effort in a particular thing, because you could be very diligent in working a field. You can be very diligent in collecting stamps. You can be very diligent in creating knitting patterns. It doesn't mean that it is joyous effort from a Buddhist perspective. You could be diligent, you can make a lot of effort. But if it's about neutral actions, and even more so, if it's about non-virtuous actions, it's not joyous effort. It's just effort. It's not joyous effort. Joyous effort. So you might be happy about a particular thing. Like, for example, I had a few years ago, I was invited to a dinner party among some friends, and the host had a big cabinet that was full of ceramic turtles. Right, honestly, there were hundreds of them, which I thought it's pretty impressive in terms of, it's probably, you need to be diligent in acquiring all that massive collection of ceramic turtles. I think that it made her happy. So you can say that she's joyous about it. There was effort required in it. So it fulfills that etymology of joyous effort, but it certainly doesn't fit the definition. It's not rejoicing in virtue. It's not, you might say that it's not necessarily negative, although you might say that maybe there is some attachment that is involved with that, but you can say that probably in most cases it's just neutral. You cannot say that this is absolutely negative. Anyway, if you have a collection of ceramic turtles, I rejoice, but probably not in virtue, just I rejoice in your effort. Anyway, so it says here, what is enthusiasm? It is enthusiasm but virtue. So we started yesterday to look at the different classifications of enthusiasm about virtue. So I said that in English, there are different ways of translating that. So here it says enthusiasm. We often say joyous effort. Joyous effort has some misleading connotation, I think, in English. It is an attempt to translate the sentiment of the word in Tibetan, or at least the Dhamma etymology, the Dhamma explanation, definition of the term, right? So to be enthused might seem as if you're completely joyous, but I think that it has the sense that whatever you do it with a smile on your face and you're kind of brimming with happiness. It's not necessarily the case, is it? Now, some things could be quite difficult. For example, your patience might be tested and you will go head on into the practice of patience and thinking that this is absolutely necessary for me to do. But it's not necessarily that you will do it with an absolute smile on your face, as if kind of you're a complete lunatic. Yeah, it's not necessarily that will happen. Or, you might go into a 3-month retreat of shamatha, calm abiding, which is supposed to generate also this high level of quiescence in your mind, just oozing well-being. So you will approach that with enthusiasm. If you think about it in terms of the joyous effort translation, it might imply that you're sitting in meditation with a big smile on your face because you're so joyous, as if kind of you're on the edge with happiness. It's not necessarily like that. It's just being enthused about it, right? So this is one way of translating that joyous effort. Another one is enthusiastic diligence, which I think that is also a good translation, but it's quite mouthful. Right? It's quite difficult to say enthusiastic diligence. There are quite a lot of syllables in that, at least comparing to the Tibetan word, tsundru. That's it. Anyway, Olaf says, so it can be said that we're not practicing the perfection as it is intended until we have a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. So it's a good question, Olaf. When you look at Chandrakirti's supplement to the Middle Way, it speaks about, so what Chandrakirti does in his supplement to the Middle Way, which consists of 10 chapters, is to apply the practice of the 10 perfections to the 10 Bodhisattva bhumis, to the 10 Bodhisattva grounds. So on each one of the ground, you attain the higher practice of a certain perfection. On the first ground, you attain the higher practice of the perfection of generosity. The second ground, the higher practice of the perfection of ethics. On the third ground, the higher practice of the perfection of patience. And on the fourth ground, you attain the higher practice of the perfection of joyous effort. Which means that the attainment of the grounds begins with generating a perceptual realization of emptiness. Before you attain a perceptual realization of emptiness, you don't even start to attain the higher practice of any perfection. Only once you attain a high perceptual realization of emptiness along the Mahayana path, right? It has to be along the Mahayana path. Then you start to attain the high practice of the perfection, but you still haven't perfected them. From the point of view of this school of thought, which means that we're following Selage's presentation, the manuals that we follow come from the perspective of Selage's manual writers, Jetsun Chugi Gyaltsen, Jetsumpa. So the position that we take according to that, and that could be debated between different scholars, but the position that, let's say, our teachers follow is that when you attain a perceptual realization of emptiness, you're still working on perfecting generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, and so forth. They are only perfected once you attain the state of Buddhahood. So when you become Buddha, you have perfect generosity, perfect ethics, perfect patience, perfect joyous effort. So going back to Olaf's question, can it be said that we are not practicing the perfection as it is intended until we reach a dark perceptual realization of emptiness? So currently we are developing enthusiasm in enthusiasm in joyous effort, in virtue. We haven't attained the higher practice of the perfection of joyous effort. We will attain that once we attain the fourth ground. All right. So we spoke of, so Olaf says, so could we say we are practicing the mundane perfections as opposed to transcendental perfections? On one level, probably yes. I'm not sure that I remember that I encountered this way of expressing it, practicing a mundane perfection of wisdom. You can say that you have the higher practice of the perfection of wisdom and just a mere practice of the perfection of wisdom. Maybe you can call the mere practice of the perfection of wisdom a worldly one or a mundane one. Maybe you can say that. I'll check it out. Do you remember? You have any recollection?
Practicing just says that you're practicing, you haven't attained anything yet.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like you're practicing it,
you
but you haven't attained it. I mean, you can say that maybe mundane is from the viewpoint of being an ordinary sentient being, not having realized emptiness perceptually.
You could be a bodhisattva, on the path of, to lower path.
Yeah, and the path of accumulation, the path of preparation. So you could be a bodhisattva on the path of accumulation and preparation. You haven't realized emptiness. You're practicing generosity, ethics, joyous effort, and patience, joyous effort, and so forth. Yeah, you haven't attained the high practice.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So, then, so we spoke about enthusiasm about virtue. Let's look at the divisions or the classifications. So yesterday I said that there are two ways of classifying joyous effort. One way was the way that Vasubandhu glosses joyous effort in the Abhidhamma Kosha, the treasury of valid cognition, the treasury of knowledge. In the treasury of knowledge, he says that it is a mind that is enthusiastic with regards to armoring, application, non-inferiority, irreversibility, and insatiability or non-complacency. Yesterday, we read through Lama Tsongkhapa's, actually before we get to that, then Lama Tsongkhapa explains joyous effort in a specific Mahayana way. So it says that you have armoring joyous effort of gathering virtuous dhammas, and effort of enacting the welfare of sentient beings. So it's in a specific Mahayana way. So I think that yesterday, maybe Olaf said that maybe we can look at Vasubandhu's explanation of Hinayana joyous effort and Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation of Mahayana joyous effort. I think that it was Olaf, or maybe that was the way that Olaf referred to it. I think that just to make it clear, as Mahayana practitioners, we have to also practice, we have to base a practice on what the Hinayana tradition or path practices. So if you think that what Vasubandhu refers to is a Hinayana Josephat, and therefore this is not the type of Josephat that we are aiming at. Well, we should do that. It's included within what Lama Tsongkhapa is explaining. So they are not unrelated. Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation is taking into consideration that you would also be practicing all the other flavors, this is to say, of Josephat. So when Vasubandhu classifies Josephat in this way, I think that it doesn't refer to a classification in which you practice either Amaring Josephat or applications Josephat or insatiability Josephat or non-despondency or non-disturbed Josephat. It's rather that you practice one Josephat in which you are completely enthused about virtue. It has these 5 features. It had 5 features of armoring, in which you have set your mind up to the point in which you think that it doesn't matter how long it will take, it doesn't matter how many difficulties I will experience, I will continue with that until the end. So it has this, first of all, it has this quality. Another feature that it will have is insatiability. You want to do better and better. Another aspect it will have is that you're not going to be put off by obstacles, by difficulties, and thinking that it's too hard. Maybe I should do something else. So I cannot do it. Maybe I should go and try something else. Right. So so I think that altogether we're working on developing Josephat in general, and it needs to have those 5 features to be a powerful Josephat. So we spoke about the first one, armoring Josephat, donning the armor of enthusiasm prior to embarking on a virtuous activity. This is what Lama Tsongkhapa says in the Lamrim Chemo. So it says that in terms of your pursuit of virtuous activities or a certain project, right? So you develop compassion, bodhicitta, calm abiding, special insight. Right from the beginning, your motivation should be very strong in thinking that I will continue with that, even if it takes me eons on end. I would not turn back from that, right? So donning the armor of enthusiasm prior to embarking on a virtuous activity. One does not feel daunted by hardships and is not discouraged. It causes you to easily accomplish limitless accumulations and purify measureless obscurations. It becomes an excellent cause for not turning back. Through it, you quickly become Buddha. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa says that if you have put on such an armor, you joyously persevere for 2 purposes: to gather virtue and to act for the welfare of sentient beings. Which means that again, Lama Tsongkhapa takes this armoring Josephat and adds a Mahayana, or he puts a Mahayana spin on it. He adds something to that. So as of not only you're determined to accomplish your mission without turning back, no matter what happens, no matter how long it will take you, it is also very specific with respect to gathering virtue. So remember that gathering virtue is practicing the 6 perfections, right? So with respect to the practice of the 6 perfections, you will not turn back. You do whatever it takes to practice generosity, ethics, patience, and so forth. Also, with respect to working for the sake of other sentient beings, you'll be undaunted. You'll not turn back. So that's armoring Josephat. Good afternoon, Florin.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you. So that's the first step of Josephat. We're looking at a Josephat from the 7th chapter in Shantideva's text. So then the second type of Josephat is effort of application. And it says it is the effort of engaging in the practice. There are 2 types: constant and devoted application. So while the first type of Josephat, armoring Josephat, has to do with the initial intentionality that you put into your practice, the one in application is the one that you need to develop to maintain continuity of your practice. You need to be constant, which means that don't be, the opposite of that is being fickle, or to be half-hearted about it. So you need to develop those two aspects to joyous effort, to have constant effort. I guess that's sometimes part of our shortcomings. I think that I speak about it from personal perspective. Sometimes we do a certain practice and then we decide that maybe it's time to take a break. So we leave it aside. Then the momentum that we gain wears off. We lose some of the familiarity. Then we go back to it again with enthusiasm. It's like, sometimes it's like starting from square one, right? So we need to be consistent. Particularly if you want to attend things like shamatha, right? Shamatha requires constant effort. Sometimes we either go on a shamatha weekend, but it's more like practicing meditation, maybe in a closed environment for 2 days. But then after that, we need to take that and apply daily. If we don't have a daily practice, but also if we don't dedicate enough time for daily practice, we might improve a little bit, but probably not a lot. We need to be devoted also to the practice in order for it to bear results. So those are the two aspects that Lama Tsongkhapa mentions with respect to this applicational joyous effort. Be consistent and also be devoted to it. All right, what's the coffee and chocolate business? Shannon says, how does one avoid burnout while trying to train in joyous effort? More coffee, more chocolate, and probably more sleep. No, I'm just joking. There's actually, in the second part of chapter number 7, Shantideva explains how to gather the factors which are conducive to joyous effort. And he speaks about cultivating 4 powers which are necessary for maintaining joyous effort. And one of them is the power of relinquishment, the power of suspension. He says that if you're about to if you're tired, if you're about to burn out, take a break. Take a break, but think to yourself that as soon as I'm rested, I'm ready to pick it up again. If you push, and then completely wear yourself out, you'll be disinclined to pick it up again, even after you've rested. For that reason, it's also said that when you start certain meditation practices, such as, for example, calm abiding, which you develop concentration, start small. Short meditation sessions, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and build it up gradually. If right from the beginning you start with half an hour, or 2 hours, you're setting yourself up for failure. Maybe not everyone will absolutely fail, but probably most people will fail if they begin with meditation sessions that are too long to begin with, right? So also we will go over that later on, but what Shantideva says is for example, create a plan, meditation plan. Generate a certain motivation for accomplishing that. Be realistic about your abilities. Aspire to achieve, to do better in the future, but also know when to take a rest. So we'll talk about it later. All right, so we spoke about applicational joyous effort of application. Then we have effort of non-inferiority, generating enthusiasm while engaging in virtue without being discouraged. So non-inferiority is a weird word, isn't it? Let's look at the way that Shantideva refers to that, or not rather than Shantideva, it's Geta Dhammarincha's commentary. Somewhere here. Thank you. No, I'll find it, worry not. No, it's all right. Okay, now I can share it. So there's a laziness that puts oneself down, thinking that I cannot do this after having become discouraged. So it's looking down on your own abilities or becoming deflated quite soon. Now, if you take up a certain practice and you haven't prepared yourself well in terms of assessing your abilities.
So we're looking at the enthusiasm or
Yeah, yeah.
laziness to A, the enthusiasm, not the laziness to the CD.
Yeah, sorry, kind of I've mixed it up. Sorry, let's look it up. Sorry, let's look at that. Yeah. Enthusiasm of non-disheartenedness and non-disturbance. Sorry. Thank you very much for that. My absent-mindedness. So enthusiasm of non-disheartenment and non-disturbance, which is combined together into what Lama Tsongkhapa says, that you do not become discouraged. Oh, sorry, what Vasubandhu says. You do not become discouraged. You don't think that I can't do it. So if you have a good meditation plan, but also not only a good meditation plan, but you also know what to do when problems arise. And different problems can arise. Like, for example, since I've mentioned calm abiding, there's an extensive explanation of what are the prerequisites for having a good calm abiding practice, a good shamatha practice. So if you don't make sure that you have created those supporting conditions, it is likely that you will encounter difficulties. So you need to have strategies in place to know what are the difficulties that you're likely to encounter and how you're going to deal with that. If you have a plan beforehand or some idea of what you're going to do, it's be easier to work with those difficulties. Then you have the actual meditation practice. The main obstacles are laxity and excitation. So you need to be able to know to recognize them, also what strategies you need to apply in order to rid yourself of this. So you need to create this preparation work that depends on understanding what they are and also having done some trial and error, having practiced some of it to be able to know what are your shortcomings, how you approach that, how you detect that in your mind and so forth. So all of this needs to be done in order to not just think that, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to be able to do it. This is what Shantideva teaches here, how to be methodical in our approach to practice. So that was the so that was the next step of joyous effort, non-inferiority. The next one is irreversibility. The power of enthusiasm is such that while engaging in virtue, you're not diverted by other circumstances. This is actually is also very important because we do see that we sometimes get sidetracked. It happens actually, I think that you might be more susceptible to get sidetracked if this is the way that you live your life. I don't want to be like a life coach, so to speak, but sometimes I see that people are kind of, they start something, don't finish it and move on to something else, undertake it with enthusiasm, not finish it, start something else. It's creating habits which I think have a detrimental effect in terms of not being able to just do things well, right? So if you have this habit, it's good to recognize it. But also, I think that what sometimes happens when we begin with the Dhamma is that we don't have a very clear idea of the great scope of what can be accomplished and how it is accomplished serially. It depends upon the stress of the path. So we hear teaching from one teacher, and we find it really inspiring. We think that this is what I need to be doing. So we start doing it, and then we start to listen to another teachings, and then we think that this is an excellent practice. This is what I need to be doing. So we get sidetracked and do something else. then something else happens and the mind is being drawn away and we do something else. So this type of being all over the place, being easily distracted and not being able to finish one thing is a fault. So in order to prevent that, I think that one thing is to recognize that habit if we have that, but also if you have the bigger picture in place, if you first of all study the steps of the path of enlightenment and you stop with pigeonholing what needs to be done, if you know where every practice fits, what comes after the after the next, you say? Yeah, what comes after the next? You can also assess, yeah, it doesn't sound right. What comes next? What comes next? Yeah. What comes next? Then you don't, I think that you have a better ability to avoid being erratic in your practice. If you want to be consistent, you need to know where you are at the moment to know where you need to put your, to put your effort on, what you need to focus on, while not neglecting the other branches. So probably that's another reason why joyous effort is hard. No, it's found as enumerated as the fourth perfection. Then we have effort of insatiability or non-complacency. Effort such that you do not rest complacent with some trifling virtue, but you seek higher qualities, right? So you don't think to yourself, for example, I've done 1 mala a day of Om Mani Padme Hum. That's enough, I've done well. You always aspire to do more. Not only more mantras, but more meditation, more reflection, more study, so that you can do better in the future. So these are the 5 aspects of joyous effort that Lama Tsongkhapa speaks of. That Vasubandhu speaks of. All of them are aspects of joyous effort that needs to combine into a consistent enthusiasm in virtue. So it's not only one type of joyous effort that we need to develop at different points along the path. We need all of them. So this is what Vasubandhu said, and that is the basis for the classification of joyous effort according to Tsongkhapa and Gyaltsab Dhamma Rinchen. So they speak of Amaring joyous effort. This is what we've said before. But I guess that you can say that Amaring joyous effort, if you create this broad vision and become determined to accomplish that at the beginning, then you think that I'm set on attaining the state of enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Even if it takes me 6 great countless eons, not only 3, but 6 or 9, I will not turn back. I will deal with any difficulty that arises in the practice of the 6 perfections, the 4 ways of gathering, and I will not turn back. So that's the Amaring joyous effort. Then you have effort in gathering virtuous dharmas, applying yourself to the practice of the 6 perfections. And then we have something that is rather vague. So effort of enacting the welfare of sentient beings. Lama Tsongkhapa says it's properly applying yourself to the practice of the 11 activities for others' welfare. What they are was not very clear to me when I tried to look for it. There's another reference to the 11 types of living beings, of sentient beings. So I suspect that maybe applying yourself to the practice of the 11 activities for others' welfare might be connected with the 11 types of beings, right? So you work for them, those 11 types of activities were to benefit those particular beings. And it's not a big deal. It's not absolutely essential. I can try to look at a footnote for that if you are really keen on understanding what they are. Let's see if we can find it. Just a second. So it's 285, I think. 280. Anyway, still hard for now to find it. I will do it later on. That's another way of avoiding it, saying I'll do it later on. Yeah, to 238 in page 265, which I did not bring with me today. Anyway, that's joyous effort. Any questions about joyous effort before we move on to the opposite of joyous effort, which is laziness? So Paul says, I think the question was more in the context of offering service. It's something that comes up in Dharma centers, but relinquishment probably equally applies. Well, I think that I agree with you, Paul, in relation to this whole idea of offering service. I think that happens particularly in FPMT organization, since I'm most familiar with the FPMT organization. There is this idea that you always need to be offering service. You encourage to always offer service, which is a good thing. But I think that there are misguided ways of interpreting what it means or how to do it. In a sense that sometimes in some centers, in some working environments, it's considered to be that if you study, if you participate in teachings, if you go to teachings, if you do a meditation practice, you're being selfish because you're not offering service. You could be using the time to offer service. So it's a really misguided understanding, as if you're selfish in studying and reflecting. So the way of progressing in general would be study, reflection, and meditation. And together with that, we want to accumulate the collections and purify negativities and obscurations. That would be support for study, reflection, and meditation. So we can do that through offering service, for example, in a Buddhist group, Buddhist center, Dharma friends, and so forth, or in other places as well, of course. It's not only that we help Buddhist centers, we help everyone in whatever way we can. So you offer service, and if you take up a particular job or task in a certain center or group and so forth, you also need to know your limitation. Make sure that you do not neglect your study and reflection, but also don't neglect your well-being, and also take a break when you need to take a break, because otherwise, if you burn out, you're not doing your self-service, and also you'll not be offering service after that anymore. So it's best to know your limitation and not to fall prey to group pressure. All right. Olaf is saying in the Hinayana, irreversibility or stream entry occurs after breaking the first three fetters. Is it the same in the Mahayana? So what Olaf is pointing out is taken from the topic of the 20 Sangha members, which is a topic that you encounter when you study Maitreya's ornament of clear realization. So one of the topics speaks about the 20 Sangha members, which explains how different types of practitioners attain their own results and the different stages of development. So when we study the ornament of clear realization, it is a Mahayana treatise. The role of the ornament is to lead us to the state of enlightenment, to help us understand what type of consciousnesses we need to develop, what kind of pristine awarenesses we need to develop. And some of them are pristine awarenesses that are shared with Hinayana. So we need to develop some of them in our own mind, and some of them we need to know in order to lead others. So we also need to know the way that this presentation works, the 20 Sangha members from a Hinayana point of view. But then there are also equivalents to that in terms of a Mahayana progress. So that you could say that also on the Mahayana level, there's some similarity with respect to that, but not in all aspects. So why am I saying that? Because in the presentation of the 20 Sangha members, there are different stages of development. So there's stream entry. There is kind of this whole presentation is called the 8 approaches and abiders. So you have 4 stages in general: stream entry, returner, non-returner, and an arhat. Then you have approaching, and abiding in the result with respect to each one of those stages. So approaching stream entry, abiding in the result of stream entry. Approaching returner, abiding in the result of returner. Approaching non-returner, abiding in the result of non-returner. And then approaching a hardship and abiding the result of that. So Olaf is saying in the Hinayana, which correspond to that presentation, irreversibility, which means non-returner, for example, or stream entry, the first stage, occurs after breaking the three fetters. Yeah, it's also said that once you attain the path of seeing, you will never turn back. Actually, you'll never turn back even before that, but this is how it is said. So is it the same in the Mahayana? Yes, it is the same. It is actually, I gave a long answer to something that I could have said to begin with, yes. So you're right. Let's look at laziness. Sorry, it's not this. All right, so the definition of laziness . Definition of laziness is non-enthusiasm of a mind about virtue, engendered by the comfort of lying down, etc. And it is involved with ignorance. Its function is to hinder the application to the class of virtue. So you can see that it's the direct opposite of joyous effort. Joyous effort is to be enthused about virtue. Laziness is a non-enthusiasm of the mind about virtue. So we have laziness in the way that it is understood in the world. And we have laziness from a Buddhist perspective. Are they the same? What do you think? No. So you say no. So for example, could you give me an example about laziness in the world, which is not considered to be laziness from a Buddhist perspective? All right, so let's start with the other way around. So laziness, something that is laziness from a Buddhist perspective, but is not laziness in the world. Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Studying normal things other than Dharma.
Yeah, so studying normal things other than the Dharma. So studying, for example, history, yes. Botany. It's not to say that it's bad. Sorry? Archaeology. Cosmology. It's not to say that it's bad. I mean, it's definitely not bad. You can also study some things with the attitude that you will be using it for the welfare of others. So you could say that, for example, you're passionate about studying medicine so that you can help others. You could say that you're not studying the Dharma. You might be non-Buddhist, but you still do it with the attitude of wanting to benefit other sentient beings. But you can consider that to be enthused about virtue, but not necessarily from the perspective of understanding what virtue is, that virtue is that which results in happiness. So that was an example of something that is laziness from a Buddhist perspective, but not laziness in the world. What about laziness in the world, which is not laziness from a Buddhist perspective? Yeah, lazy to make your bed. I think that probably took the Dechen is probably. Oh, that's it's probably visited my room. All right, meditating. Actually, some people kind of think that let's say that if you meditate and don't get a real job, so to speak, then you're being just lazy.
That's ignorant.
That's ignorant. Spending your days meditating instead of getting a full-time job. Yeah.
If you're not a hard-working Australian.
I mean, I wish I would be spending all my days meditating and just kind of getting a full-time job, yeah, rather than getting married and having 6 kids. Sorry?
Sandy said 6.
6, yeah.
Yeah, 6.
All right. Anyway, I think that we get the message. Then we have.
Difference or no difference?
Sorry?
There is a difference between the Buddhist laziness and the world laziness?
Well, from a Buddhist perspective, to be lazy is to be, laziness in a Buddhist context is not to be enthused about virtue. Right? So either to be disinclined to do it, to be half-hearted in doing it, or to not think that it's an important thing at all. So this is what laziness means. So you can be, in some sense, very diligent in what you do. You might be really into gardening, spend hours a day in your garden doing different stuff. So you wouldn't be regarded as a lazy person in the world. But if in your mind you're disinclined with respect to virtue, you're not really enthused about it, you're lazy. So it is understood here in a particular context, right? So in general, let's say that you hang out with your Dhamma friends. You can say that that person is lazy in looking at what they do in a worldly perspective. And it's a fair assessment. Like, for example, I hate gardening. I hate physical work. I'm totally lazy with respect to that. So if anyone will tell me that I'm lazy, I will full-heartedly agree with that. But then it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm also lazy in my Dhamma activities. Not to say that I have a lot of joyous effort. I'm not implying that. But if I still enthused about some virtue, then from a Dhamma perspective, I have joyous effort. But from a worldly perspective, I can still be lazy about other areas.
What about if you are joyful of everything? That means you'll be joyful to the virtue also.
Well, if you're joyful,
everything as joyfully, that means you'll be all the time also joyful about virtue.
Well, if you're joyful about everything, you need to be careful, first of all, that you're not joyful about things that are non-virtues, things that could increase your afflictive states of mind. So, when we think about being joyous about non-virtue, it might seem to be like a really extreme situation. But sometimes we kind of, we take up things and we become really passionate about them without really seeing how they act to fuel our afflictive states of mind. Now, so we might have some levels of attachment with respect to certain things. Like, I don't know, I like food. I like chocolates. So I can take up cooking course with a sense of enthusiasm. It will increase my attachment. So you can say that taking a cooking course, it's not a negative thing. It's not a non-virtuous thing. It's not that that's the source of all evil in the world. But on a personal level, if I put all my focus on that, it still acts to increase my attachment. It still acts to detract from my effort in Dhamma. So in that specific context, you could say that even if it's not a great negativity, it's still working against me. It's not to say that I need to then immediately cast this aside, but I still need to be careful about the way that I spend my time. Also taking into consideration that we do need some downtime, in that if we think that we can practice from now on only the Dhamma 24 hours a day, if we can, that's great. But I guess that for most of us, it's not something that we can do. So we need also some downtime, so you can have a downtime in watching something for half an hour, or even 2 hours, once a day, once a week, or what have you. Take some rest and then still make sure that your main focus is virtue. Now, you can also be enthused about things that are neutral. I think that it's the same thing. If it detracts from your Dhamma study, reflection, and practice, it might turn into attachment at the end. So it might work against you. It might not be as negative as other things, but still, we want to first of all recognize what virtue is. Virtue is that which has the potential in resulting in future happiness, which means a better set.
Others, or
Sorry?
to others or to yourself?
Well, so when you look at the definition of what virtue is, it is said that which is by type it can bring about a positive fruition. It means for yourself, it will result in happiness, which means either in a good state of rebirth or in other types of physical or mental happiness. But then another way of assessing what a virtuous action is, it's more like a yardstick for assessing a virtuous action. It says that if it's helpful to yourself and helpful to others, it is virtuous. If it's harmful to yourself and harmful to others, it is a negativity. So if you look at a dictionary definition, a negativity or a non-virtue would be that which results in negative fruition. By type, it results as a negative fruition. But still, the yardstick is that if it's harmful to yourself, it's harmful to others, that's a negative action. Just about everything Olaf says. So Shannon says, it seems if we totally neglect the neutral action we enjoy doing outside of a Dharma context, it takes a toll on our well-being. Yeah, we do need some downtime every once in a while. Sorry? Yeah. Gardening. Watching Netflix. No. Sorry? There you go. That's totally virtuous. So we haven't really completed this one, but there are three types of laziness: laziness of indolence, of attraction to ignoble activities, and laziness of belittling yourself or being discouraged. We'll leave it here for now, but if you are inclined to do some revision tonight, I just want to point out something with respect to laziness. So we have the three types of laziness, but it seems that they're classified according to the causes of laziness. So laziness is being being unenthused about virtue. You don't find it appealing. So why is it that you don't find it appealing? Because you're used to just being idle, or because you're craving sleep, or because you have a low self-esteem and thinking that someone like yourself would not be able to accomplish that. You become discouraged. These are the causes of laziness, which is unenthused. And therefore, laziness is called laziness of discouragement, laziness of being attracted to ignoble activities, like, you prefer to go out to the movies, to go to the swimming pool, to do gardening, rather than doing something that is virtuous. Sorry. I tell myself, I apologize to myself for that. All right.
If you're looking after physical and mental well-being, that doesn't help other people.
Yeah, again, I think that we ought to not take a radical approach to being Buddhist. Otherwise, we become born-again Buddhists. Born-again Buddhists, which is not becoming radical, is not a good solution. Most people can keep up with that for a short duration and then feel that it doesn't work. So
Sorry, what is this born again?
it's like born-again Christian.
Like what? Sorry.
All right, it's just being fundamental. If you become fundamental Buddhist and try to be absolutely right and virtuous and pious at all times, right from the beginning, it'd be difficult to keep doing it for a long time. So pacing ourselves is good. We'll learn, Shantideva speaks how to pace yourself later on in the chapter when he speaks of those four paths which are conducive to joyous effort. So let's leave it here for now.
Carlton, excuse me. Hello. You mentioned there were a reference that discussed the 5 kinds of joyous effort. Could you please tell me that reference? I think it was Jason Carper, I think. Sorry, the title. Please.
Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chinrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduous moral way, you serve as the battlefield bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine. O masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, protector of myself and others, your disciples, please live long.
Will you send those updates to me?
Yeah, I was supposed to send it yesterday, but I forgot, so I'll send it today. Apologies.